should probably be done by the community. And as a result, no one's happy. Government can't do it right. The government spends too much money, and the government then tries to raise taxes. If we were involved in our communities more, perhaps we could provide the solutions locally more efficiently. But more importantly, perhaps if we were involved in our communities, we could start filling that emptiness that buying things just doesn't fill. That's a tall climb. I mean, we're going to have to change attitudes and expectations. We are capitalists, right? But it's the government's fault. There's responsibility that needs to be shifted. But don't worry, this is where history repeats itself. We're not the only ones. When these horrible people called the Romans brought their knowledge and economic might into the land of Jerusalem, bettered tons of people's lives. You know what the number one complaint was? They can't do anything right. They tax too much. I think we are in this spiral. And I think we need to take responsibility if we want to change our community. And I'm going to be harsh for a second. We got a lot to conquer. We got to start focusing a little more on others than ourselves. We need to be involved with our local charities. And that doesn't mean this church per se, but find something that is meaningful to you. And start being involved. Maybe try how about a half a day a month? Get your feet wet. And see if you can start making a difference. But we need to just not give our time. We need to give our resources. And we want to understand why the government's so involved with everything and running programs. I will tell you. As many of you know, I do a lot of tax returns. And I did a tax diagnostic. It's a warning. It's a critical warning. If one of my clients gives more than 3% to charity and donations, which includes cash and non-cash, it goes, this is well outside the norm. You sure you have all the documentation you need so you don't get paid comparative penalties from the IRS? That tells me the average person, including the non-cash donations, is not giving more than 3%. It's hard to change and better our community when we're not involved. Some of the biblical teachings, we'll start with the Old Testament. I'm going to destroy this name, but Melchizedek blesses Abram. The blessing of the supreme God, creator of heaven and earth, be upon you, Abram. And blessed be God, who has delivered your enemies over to you. And then Abram gave him a tenth of all the loot. Old Testament mentions about giving to you in Genesis. And a pillar, and this memorial pillar shall become a place for worship, and I will give you back a tenth of everything you give me. Being thankful and humble before the Lord. Leviticus, a tenth of the produce of the land, whether grain or fruit, is Lord's and is holy. I know some of you zoned out now. Oh my God, this one's about tithing. That's why there was no title on the sermon. He got me. He suckered me. And I'm not going to ask you to tithe. Not yet, at least. In the New Testament, if you thought 10% was harsh, you got to hear what the New Testament views are. What Jesus never said a tenth, by the way. Not that I could find. I'm not a scholar, but I never saw it in writing. He's a little bit more radical. He says, Give what is Caesar Caesar's and what is God's God. And the second scripture today, he gave for last penny. I think Christ does the standard. He didn't ask 10%, he asked for 100%. I'm not sure anyone in this room can meet that standard. But we could start taking steps. And when I read these passages, I'll be honest, I'm an accountant, and someone says 10%, even I get scared. That's what we call a material item. But I've thought about this a long time, and I think the bottom line of the message is, if you want a good community, you have to be active and support your community. I will challenge you though. But I'll make this challenge for something that I do myself. Last year, when I became a lay speaker, I actually began tithing my earnings. I'm not saying that to brag. And my life definitely has not been easier due to that. I've been blessed more than God. I have not received favor. I have not received any vision.